Welcome back. F1 Break Check is coming at you with a special episode. On today's show, Corey and I will break down a review and thoughts on F1 the movie. So stick around because here we go on F1 Break Check.
Welcome. You are listening to F1 Break Check, the epic podcast for all things Formula One, where we discuss technology, history, news, and perspective. With your hosts, Scott Vick and Corey Broom.
Welcome back to a special edition of F1 Break Check. My name is Scott Vick. I am one of your intrepid hosts, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime, my ride or die, my pundit for life, Mr. Corey Broom. Corey, how you doing this week, sir?
Good. Yeah, good so far.
How you doing for this special edition? I guess is probably
Yeah,
more.
it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for this special edition. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. I'm same. It's a very, good weekend, and I'm ready to dive into, really ready to dive into this because, it's to, I lost my train here, so let's just dive right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, Corey and I saw F1 the movie this last Friday, and we saw it as just a general screening, nothing special. We were out there with the regular folks. We paid for our own tickets. And so, Corey, let's dive into it. So, first and foremost, what were your initial thoughts and impressions? And just remember, no spoilers and nothing specific right now. Just what was your overall general impression of the movie?
Yeah, overall, I liked it. There was, again, not any spoilers. I think everybody knows this, but there's lots of cameos by those that represent the F1 in general. So there's lots of drivers. There's lots of personalities in there. So I really, really enjoyed it from that aspect. There's a few things that we'll get into later that, just nitpicky from a fan perspective that I didn't really enjoy that much. But overall, it's worthy of seeing.
Okay. So my initial impression was at first when we walked out of the theater, I didn't like it. I was very upset with it. But now having slept on it for a couple days, for 2 days, and having to put a little more thought into it, my view of the movie has changed. And I overall as a movie, I thought it was really, really good. I thought that the racing action and the cinematography, the all of the Hollywood parts of it, the cinematography, the action shots, the music score, everything else around it, around the story was top notch. I thought that they did an absolutely phenomenal job. The story, for the most part, was pretty good. And the parts of it that I had a problem with initially, the more I thought about them, the more I realized that no, Scott, you are being way too nitpicky because about half the stuff that you're upset about, and we'll get into that here in just a few minutes, a lot of that stuff that we're going to dive into was stuff that you shouldn't be so nitpicky about. So, so I think that's really where it falls, and it's like the more I've thought about it, the more I like the movie, and the more I'm kind of looking forward to getting to go see it again a second time because my daughter, who is a casual F1 fan, is wanting to see the movie and everything. So I'm looking forward to taking her to go see it to see what she thinks.
Yep. Sounds good, man.
All right, so now we're going to actually dive into the movie itself. So right now, I have to tell you, there are heavy spoilers coming up. So if you have not already seen the movie, I'm telling you now, pause right here, immediately go buy a ticket, go watch the movie, and then as soon as it's done, start this back up. Okay, you've been warned. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So first and foremost, I've already kind of mentioned what I liked about the movie. So what were some of the specific things that you really liked about the movie, Corey?
Well, I'm a big Brad Pitt fan. I really, really enjoy his acting. So him being in it was awesome. I thought that they did a good job generally around F1, around racing. They didn't do your favorite drop a gear to pass a guy.
Yes.
So I really, really enjoyed that. But just overall, I think that it was a really good story. There was a lot of obviously there's a lot of Hollywood in there. Real world, this wouldn't really happen, but Hollywood, you suspend some of that realism for Hollywood.
Yes.
This was not a documentary. This was a story.
Yes.
Is a fictitious uh, constructors that was out there, so it had nothing to do with reality. Yes, they did use real drivers' names, real drivers' behaviors, like K Mag.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
it was really, really good that way. But again, if you're looking at realism, yes, you may not enjoy this film as much as the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, and that was the probably the part of it that I had to take the most I had to kind of take a step back from it, because the way that I see it is there's like three types of F1 fans. There is the casual fan who they've watched Drive to Survive. They
Yeah.
know who the drivers are, they know who the teams are, they watch the races, they kind of know some of the basics of it, like how DRS works and things like that, and stuff, but they're not, as enmeshed in the sport. And then there's like what I call the serious fans, which are the ones who, in addition to knowing who all the drivers and all the teams are, they know about the tracks. They know, a lot more about, the things like, how the power units are designed, and so
Mhm.
and other parts that, and they know kind of, somewhat about how, the sporting regulations work and things like that. And then there is like what I call the hardcore fans, which is what I put myself in that category. And the guys that not only are they're like super fans because they like read the sporting regulations. They can like quote parts of the sporting regulations to you. They know the history of the sport, going back decades, and things like that. The first two are who the movie is aimed at.
Yeah.
I am not their target audience, as much as I hate to say it. I am, unless you are willing to, it's that suspension of disbelief. If you can do that, great. And like I said, it took me a little bit to take and kind of step back and kind of let the suspension of disbelief come in. And that's when I started to think about it more. And the more I realized that, yes, I enjoyed the movie despite my nitpicking.
Yeah.
And I even realized that, like I mentioned earlier, is some of my nitpicking was unfounded, actually, because because some of the things that I was really nitpicking and that really kind of took away from the movie for me, later on, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no, this is just a Hollywoodized version of something that has actually happened.
Right.
So, for example, the Brad Pitt during in the movie, in order to help out his teammate, advance his position during the race, he intentionally bumps into other cars,
Right.
causing damage, which brings out the safety car, which then takes and helps the team formulate a strategy around his teammate. In Pierce, the character JP Pierce, his fictitious teammate. So Sonny tears up his front wing, comes into the pit, but at the same time, the debris causes a safety car, but by leaving JP out, that allows him to take and climb up in the ranks during the course of the race. Well, at first, I was really having a lot of problems with that, because I'm like, there is no way that the stewards are going to let that happen. Well, the only problem is, though, is that it has happened. We all remember Singapore, and we all remember Crashgate, when
Yeah.
Nelson Piquet Jr. stuffed his car into the wall intentionally so that Fernando Alonso could win the race. So this is all stuff that is actually, is born out of, it's kind of more of a Hollywoodized
Yeah.
version. Yes, he
Right.
definitely would have gotten dragged. Sonny would have definitely gotten dragged in front of the stewards, which
No
they
doubt.
alluded to that they alluded to that he
Yeah.
was going to get
Yep.
dragged in front of the stewards. And thankfully, they left that part of it out. They didn't bore the audience with that. Someone like me would have wanted to know what had come out of that meeting.
Yeah.
So they
Right.
mentioned that he was going to be dragged in front of the stewards, but they never really mentioned any, penalties or things like that, you know, that came out of that. But otherwise, that is, those, there have been times where, now the Singapore crash with, that was a little more overt, but there have been other incidents where you kind of looked at it and thought, no, is this the team kind of playing a game and everything? And although it was never confirmed, you have to wonder,
Yeah.
Did that really happen? And so that was one of the things that I was really nitpicking about and said that could never happen. And it's like, and then the more I thought about it, I'm like, not only could it happen, it has happened.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that I didn't like, again, as a fan of F1 and being critical about them not suspending reality was the part where, the technical director is saying you're going to put hards on, and Sonny sits there in the pit waiting until they put softs on. Well, you wait that long, your race is over. So yeah, you can
Exactly.
get back in, but you're by far way behind. There's no way you're catching up. No way.
And depending upon the track, you might
Yeah.
even be a lap down now at this
Oh,
point. If you're at
easily.
like a
Yeah.
really short track, like, really short, fast track like Austria or something,
Yeah.
you're already a lap down. You
Yep.
sit there in the pits for a minute, and a lap at Austria, at the Ring, is a minute 10 seconds. You sit there for that long, you're right. That was one thing that really did bother me. The fact
Yeah.
that the team would have said, okay, if you're not going to go out now, we're not changing your tires. If you're not going out, jack it up, rolling back into the
Yep.
garage. He's done.
Right.
So
Right.
that is something that
Saves
never
saves
would
the
have happened.
engine. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
But again,
exactly.
for the most part, yeah, I thought it was a good
Yes.
film, and by far, I would definitely recommend it, even if you're an
Yeah.
F1 fan. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that even, definitely the casual fans, I think they're gonna be, because like, there's people who maybe not even were F1 fans, but like you, they're Brad Pitt fans, or they are Brockheimer film fans.
Hmm.
They love Top Gun Maverick and stuff. And so
Yeah.
they're going for that reason. And hopefully this movie is what's going to turn them into fans.
Yeah. The other thing that I liked is that they included all the drivers. So if you
Hmm.
notice, there is 22 drivers on the grid, not 20.
Yes,
So
exactly.
all all the drivers were represented. You could see all of their names, and again, this is going back a couple years, is when they first filmed it. So
Hmm.
uh, everybody was represented. All the teams were there, even though it was loosely based on Mercedes. They still had Mercedes there, and this was back when Lewis was still with Mercedes. So
Yes.
it was somewhat of a time capsule as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm like you. I really like the way that they did go for, one of the things that, I read in an interview afterwards is that the filmmakers they were really going for authenticity as much as they could in the way that they filmed the movie and everything. And the scene at the beginning, or not at the beginning, but at the beginning of a race, when all of the drivers are out on the grid for the national anthem and they're all lined up shoulder to shoulder, and you've got Brad Pitt literally standing right next to, I forget, in that shot, I think it was like he was literally standing right next to Lewis in that shot, and you had George just on the other side of him.
Yeah.
And so it's like you literally had all of the drivers on the grid. You saw, Max, on the grid, in several of the scenes, interacting, with the characters almost like they would if they were for real F1 drivers and a
Right.
for real F1 team and everything. So yes, they in the way they tried to go for as much authenticity as possible, I thought was really, really
Yeah.
good.
Agreed.
The only other problem that I had with the movie is that any serious or hardcore fan will tell you that not that that turning around a car is nearly impossible to do it as quickly as they show it happening in the movie. To turn around a car, that is, for lack of a better term, and you can beat me later, shitbox, it's something that's, a real pig to drive. They're not going to turn it around in 9 races and make it a race winner. There's no way. I
Like
mean,
Red
we've
Bull.
seen some miraculous, huh?
Like Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, we saw McLaren start out pretty bad, the year before, but
Yep.
that still took them 18 months to turn that car around before it started becoming competitive. And it was even, so it's, you can't turn around a car and take it from being garbage to being competitive, for wins. Yes, you can make it better so that it moves up, up the grid, as far as performance and stuff goes, but you're not going to make a winner in 3 or 4 races from something that's horrible to something that's great, because there are too many parts to the car, all of these improvements that have to be made all simultaneously. There's no one magic bullet, and they show it where all they did is they changed some of the little tuning vanes that take and
Yeah, right.
that directs the airflow underneath the car, and all of a sudden now the car is, so much faster and everything. And it's like, no, that's hooey. And that's one of the biggest problems I had with the movie.
Right.
But again, that's Hollywood.
Yep.
They
They
can't
had to
take and
move it
show,
around.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, they can't show that. No, it doesn't take just changing those tiny little tuning vanes. It takes, changing the front wing profile. It takes and changes, changing the way that the side pods are sculpted. It takes, how the packaging around the gearbox where it mates up to the power unit. It literally takes hundreds of changes in order to take and turn a car around like that, not just one little tiny thing. Oh, well, that's our magic bullet. So that I had a real problem with. But the thing is, though, is that other than a hardcore fan like myself, I don't think too many people are going to sit around and watch them talk about, oh, well, we had to change this, and this
Right.
in order
Right.
to, in order to make the car more competitive. They're not going to sit around and listen to, an explanation about that. So it was much easier just to say, okay, we're going to change this one part and it's going to make the car so much better and everything. So,
Yeah.
it much more simplified the fact that, all of the work that the engine, but I did love the way that it showed how hard the mechanics and the
Yeah.
engineers and all of the people back at the factory, and how much time and effort they're all putting into it in order to make the cars better and make the team more successful. And that was one thing that I really thought that the movie did a very good, not a great job, but I do like the fact that they did take and try to show that, no, this isn't just all about, the hot, the good looking, drivers who climb into the car, and and the really, attractive, technical director and everything, and that's all it takes to make, a team successful. No, it showed that, yes, it takes. And although Jody, the lone female mechanic for the APX racing team in the movie, it one of the things that, I don't think that they took her storyline far enough, in the fact that, yes, she made a couple critical mistakes during a Grand Prix, and and it showed that, those little mistakes is what can cost a team, places on, in the order, at the end of the race. But I wish they had kind of taken those stories about the mechanics and everything just a little bit further. But I guess, the movie was already 2.5 hours long. That, I mean, if they
Yeah.
had really fleshed out those stories and everything, it would have been a 3.5 hour long
Yeah.
movie.
Easily. Yeah.
And other than a hardcore fan like, like us, I don't think there's a lot of casual fans that were going to sit through a 3.5 hour
Yeah.
movie to take and talk about the mechanics and how hard they're working and everything.
Right.
But I do like the fact that they took and they didn't just make it, the mechanics weren't, they were actual characters. They all weren't just background
Mhm.
dressing and everything,
Yeah.
which I thought was really, really great. And the fact that they took and went that extra mile to show those stories of, not just the, the drivers who get all the headlines, or the technical
Yeah.
directors, or, the team principals, who are the ones that the media always see. They also took and talked about some of those unsung heroes, like the guy who's, changing it, running, using the wheel gun to change the tire, and the stress that they're under, because, it's like they've got to be pinpoint perfect every time. And if they're off even just by the littlest tiny little bit, it costs the team. And I liked how they showed that, that part of the sport and everything. So,
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
so your final thoughts, Corey?
Yeah. Highly recommended. It's a fun
Yes.
watch, even like you said, even for the casual viewer, even somebody that doesn't really know F1. They don't go into technical details, and the technical details that they go into, it's high level enough to where you'll understand it. And there's no major gaps there. And for your F1 fan, there's enough eye candy there, as far as enough drivers and technical directors there. So you will have your eyes full. It's
Yeah.
definitely worthy.
Yes. I think that, yes, it is definitely, it's a fun watch. Just like I said, even if you're a hardcore fan, kind of leave your kind of leave your critical eye at the door when you buy your popcorn and just go in and enjoy it as a movie itself. You're going to enjoy you're going to enjoy it a lot. Um, if you're a casual fan, or even if you're just, if you're a serious fan, you're definitely going to enjoy it. So I definitely highly recommend it. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, Corey and I went to just a general screening. We didn't, we paid for our own tickets and everything. And one of the things that Corey and I both commented about when we were leaving is we were super happy that the theater was full. And that really was something that made me very excited. The fact that there was enough interest in it that a lot of people showed up. And I've talked to several other people outside of the F1 realm and everything. And a lot of people who have gone to see it, they've all said the same thing. Their theater they're full when they went to go see it. So that makes me really super happy. And I can't wait to see what the numbers look like from this weekend. So, but all in all, I'd say that Corey and I would definitely recommend going to see the movie. You will definitely enjoy it.
Cool. All right.
Ready? So, yep. So I think it's time for us to go. So thank you for listening to this special episode of F1 Brake Check. We'll be back in a couple of days to break down all the action from the Austrian Grand Prix this last weekend. So until next time, he's Corey. I'm Scott. We are the pundits of F1 Brake Check. Let's go!
Thank you for listening to F1 Brake Check. If you have enjoyed what you heard, don't miss a single episode by hitting that subscribe button in your favorite podcatcher, or you can watch the video version on YouTube. Help us grow by sharing us with your friends and fellow F1 fans. You can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok and X at F1 Brake Check. Our website is f1brakecheck.com, where you will find links to all our content. We value your passion and your feedback, so please take a moment to review our podcast. Your reviews help us grow and improve, and it means the world to us. Share your thoughts, rate us, and let us know how we can make the show experience even better. F1 Brake Check is a production of Brake Check Media. For your hosts Scott Vick and Corey Broom, until next time, keep yourself inside track limits, and try not to pitch it in the kitty litter.